An unexpected enemy. Commander Varric Thull sat in his command chair aboard the Xanthan battle cruiser. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he watched the approaching human vessels on the tactical display. The orange glow from the screen reflected off his scaled skin, casting eerie shadows across the bridge. "They're still coming," Commander Lieutenant Grass reported, mandibles clicking nervously. "The humans show no sign of altering course." "Of course they don't," Varric replied with a dismissive wave of his upper limb. "These are rescue vessels, medical ships. They're responding to the distress call we fabricated." He let out a dry, rasping sound that passed for laughter among his species. Humans, so predictable in their compassion. The tactical officer, Nixar, swiveled her elongated neck toward the commander. "Sir, permission to speak freely." Varric nodded, his head crest rising slightly in curiosity. "Is this wise? Attacking medical ships violates at least 7 interstellar conventions. The Galactic Council will." "The Council," Varric interrupted, rising from his chair, "is a toothless old beast that growls but never bites. Besides, who will tell them? There will be no survivors." He moved to the massive viewport where the distant pinpricks of light representing the Earth fleet grew steadily larger. "The humans have grown too comfortable, too influential. This will remind them of their place in the galaxy." "10 minutes until intercept," announced the navigation officer. Varric returned to his command chair, settling his bulk into the cushioned seat. "Prepare all weapon systems. Disable their engines first, then communications. I want them helpless and silent before we deliver the killing blow." As the bridge crew hurried to comply, Varric allowed himself a moment of reflection. His people, the Xanthans, had once been the undisputed masters of this sector until the humans arrived with their advanced technology and annoying morality. They had spread through space like a virus, making alliances, establishing trade routes, and offering protection to weaker species, including some that should have remained under Xanthan control. "Commander," called out the sensor officer, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the human vessels." Varric frowned, explained. "They appear to be standard rescue cruisers, but their power signature is off somehow. Too strong for medical ships." A cold sensation crawled down Varric's spine, settling uncomfortably in his second stomach. "Magnify visual," he ordered. The main screen shifted, showing a closer view of the approaching vessels. They bore the universal symbol for medical services, a red cross against a white background, but there was something undeniably wrong about their configuration. "Those aren't standard rescue cruisers," Nixar said quietly. "The hull plating is too thick, and look at those protrusions along the sides. Those aren't medical scanners." Ver's crest flattened against his skull as realization dawned. "It's a trap, battle stations, raise shields." But his order came too late. The lead medical ship suddenly accelerated, closing the distance between them in seconds rather than minutes. As it drew near, panels along its hull slid open, revealing rows of missile launchers. "Evasive maneuvers," Varric shouted, but the human vessels had already launched their attack. The first volley of missiles struck the Xanthan ship's forward shields, creating a brilliant cascade of energy as the protective barrier strained under the assault. The bridge rocked violently, sending several crew members tumbling from their stations. "Report," Varric demanded, gripping the arms of his chair. "Shields at 60%, Nixar replied, her voice remarkably calm. "They knew exactly where to hit us, sir. I think they knew we were coming." Varric snarled, baring his serrated teeth. "Return fire, target their engines." The Xanthan vessel's weapons powered up. But before they could fire, the human ships executed a perfect formation change, presenting minimal targets while maintaining their offensive capability. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Varric hesitated, then nodded. "Put it through." The main screen shifted again, and Varric found himself looking into the face of a human female. Her skin was dark, her hair arranged in tight coils atop her head, and her expression could only be described as smugly triumphant. "This is Captain Amara Jackson of the Earth Defense Force," she announced, her voice crisp and professional. "You have violated sovereign human space and attempted to ambush what you believed were unarmed medical vessels. That alone would be enough to warrant your destruction." "You tricked us," Varric growled. "Those are not rescue ships." Captain Jackson's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, but they are. They're just dual purpose. You see, Commander Thull, we've been watching your little band of pirates for some time now. Did you really think we wouldn't notice your attacks on our shipping lanes, the mysterious disappearances of our scout vessels? Varric felt his blood run cold. How did she know his name? I don't know what you're talking about, he blustered. We received a distress call and came to investigate. You attacked us without provocation. Jackson laughed, a sound that sent an involuntary shiver through Varric's body. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. We intercepted your communications. We know you plan to attack what you thought were defenseless medical ships, violating every principle of civilized warfare. Her expression hardened. Now you'll face the consequences. Before Varric could respond, the screen went dark. They've cut the transmission, the communications officer reported unnecessarily. All power to shields, Varric ordered. Prepare to jump to hyperspace. The hyperdrive is charging, but we need 3 minutes, the engineering officer shouted. We don't have 3 minutes, Nixar said quietly, staring at the tactical display. The human vessels had completed another formation change, surrounding the Xanthan ship in a perfect sphere. And then the real attack began. The human ships moved with uncanny coordination, launching precisely targeted strikes against the Xanthan vessel. Each hit seemed calculated to cause maximum damage while disabling rather than destroying. They're toying with us, Varric realized aloud. They could destroy us, but they're choosing not to. 1 minute until hyperdrive is ready, the engineering officer called out. A massive impact rocked the ship, sending cascades of sparks raining from the ceiling. Emergency lighting kicked in as the main power fluctuated. Hyperdrive is offline, engineering reported, panic evident in their voice. They knew exactly where to hit us. Ver slammed his fist against the arm of his chair. How could they possibly know the precise location of our hyperdrive? Commander, the sensor officer called, voice rising in pitch. We're being boarded, multiple breach points on decks 3, 5, and 7. That's impossible, Varric protested. Our shields are still. The shields flickered for 2.3 seconds during that last hit, Nixar explained. They timed their boarding parties to that exact window. Varric stared at his tactical officer in disbelief. No military force could coordinate an attack with that level of precision. It was as if the humans knew exactly what they were going to do before they did it. Security teams to all breach points, Varric ordered. Arm yourselves. We are the feared warriors of Xantha. We will not surrender to these soft-skinned mammals. But even as he spoke, the bridge doors slid open with a soft hiss. Varric whirled around, drawing his sidearm, only to freeze at the sight before him. A single human stood in the doorway. Male, tall by human standards but still shorter than the average Xanthan. He wore a sleek black armored suit that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His face was obscured by a helmet with a mirrored visor, giving no hint of the features beneath. Identify yourself, Varric demanded, weapon trained on the intruder. The human tilted his head slightly as if considering the request. Then with deliberate slowness he reached up and removed his helmet. The face beneath was unremarkable by human standards. Light brown skin, close-cropped dark hair, features that Varric would have found indistinguishable from any other human male. But the eyes were wrong. Too cold, too calculating, displaying none of the emotional transparency that typically made humans such poor liars. My name is Director Talon, the human said, his voice jarringly pleasant given the circumstances. I lead a division of Earth intelligence that you weren't supposed to know exists. Whatever you want, you won't get it, Varric snarled. Kill me if you must. Director Talon smiled. It was a small, tight expression that reminded Varric of a predator baring its teeth. If I wanted you dead, Commander Thull, you would never have seen my face. With a casual gesture, Talon tossed something onto the bridge floor. A small metallic sphere rolled to a stop in the center of the room, then projected a holographic display. Varric stared in horror at the images before him. They showed the Xanthan High Command Bunker, a facility whose location was supposed to be the most closely guarded secret in the Empire. The timestamp indicated the recording was live. As we speak, Talon explained, similar operations are underway throughout Xanthan space. Your military installations, your shipyards, your governmental centers, all are being visited by my agents. Impossible, Varric whispered. How could you have known? You really should upgrade your encryption protocols, Talon replied with a shrug. They were adequate 50 years ago, but now my analysts crack them for practice during lunch breaks. The bridge had gone deadly silent. Even those crew members who had been reaching for weapons now stood frozen, watching the holographic display with mounting dread. "What do you want?" Varric finally asked, his voice barely audible. Director Talon stepped further onto the bridge, hands clasped behind his back in a posture of complete ease. "What I want, Commander, is for you to deliver a message to your superiors. Consider yourself fortunate. You get to be the messenger." "What message?" Ver asked, already suspecting the answer. "Earth is off limits," Talon stated flatly. "Our colonies are off limits, our allies are off limits, our shipping lanes are off limits. Violate these parameters again, and what happens today will seem like a friendly warning compared to our response." Varric found himself lowering his weapon, not out of surrender, but out of a growing, horrifying realization that he had severely, catastrophically underestimated the humans. "You infiltrated our entire empire," he said slowly, just to deliver a warning. Director Talon's expression remained unchanged. "No, we infiltrated your empire because you forced our hand. The warning is a courtesy, a chance for your species to correct course before you cross a line you can't uncross." "And if we ignore this courtesy?" Nyxar asked from her station. Talon glanced at her, and something in his gaze made the tactical officer shrink back. "Earth has a long history of internal conflict," he said quietly. "We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war against ourselves before we ever reached the stars. Trust me when I say you do not want us to consider you a genuine threat." The holographic display shifted, showing more Xanthan facilities, each with humans in black armor moving through them with practiced efficiency. "We'll withdraw our forces once we've confirmed our message has been received by your high command," Talon continued. "Your ship systems will be restored, minus your weapons capabilities. Of course, you'll be free to return home and report what happened here today." Varric felt a crushing weight of humiliation and fear pressing down on him. His mission had not only failed but had apparently played directly into the humans' hands. And now he would have to return to Xantha as the bearer of the most devastating news in recent history. They had provoked a sleeping giant. "One last thing," Director Talon added, turning to leave. "That distress call you intercepted, we sent it. We knew you couldn't resist the opportunity to attack what you thought were defenseless ships coming to help others. That moral failing is why you'll never be a true power in this galaxy." With those parting words, the human replaced his helmet and walked out, leaving behind a bridge crew staring at each other in stunned silence. Varric sank back into his command chair, his mind racing. How had it all gone so wrong? The humans were supposed to be soft, their compassion a weakness to be exploited. Instead, that same compassion had been weaponized against him, turned into the perfect bait for a trap he had eagerly rushed into. "Sir," Nyxar ventured after a long silence, "what do we do now?" Varric gazed at the tactical display, where the human vessels still surrounded them, weapons primed but holding fire. A grim certainty settled over him. "We deliver their message," he said quietly, "and pray to the ancestors that our leaders are wise enough to heed it." As if in response to his words, the ship's systems began coming back online one by one. Life support, gravity control, propulsion, but notably not weapons or shields. "Set course for home," Varric ordered, his voice hollow. "We have much to report." As the Xanthan vessel limped away, permitted to leave by the watchful human fleet, Ver couldn't shake the feeling that they had just experienced something unprecedented. Not just a military defeat, but a fundamental shift in the balance of power. The humans had shown only a fraction of their true capabilities, and that glimpse alone was terrifying enough. What other secrets did they harbor? What other forces could they bring to bear if truly threatened? For the first time in his long military career, Commander Varric Thal found himself hopping for peace. Because the alternative, war with humanity, suddenly seemed like the most frightening prospect in the universe. 3 standard galactic weeks had passed since Commander Varric Th's humiliating return to Xantha Prime. The once proud officer now sat in a small antechamber outside the High Command Council chambers, awaiting his fate. His scales had dulled from their usual vibrant purple to a sickly lavender, a visible sign of the stress he had endured. The doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and a junior officer gestured for him to enter. "They're ready for you, Commander, or should I say former Commander." Varric ignored the barb. His demotion was the least of his concerns now. The council chamber was vast, designed to intimidate with its soaring ceilings and the elevated platform where 7 of the most powerful Xanthans in the Empire sat in judgment. Their head crests were fully extended, a sign of extreme agitation among their kind. Varric intoned Grand Admiral Cross, the head of the council. Your failure has put our entire empire at risk. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we never suspected they possessed. With respect, Admiral, Varric replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. I submitted a complete report. The humans knew about our operations before we even launched them. They have infiltrated our command structure, our communications networks. Yes, yes, interrupted Admiral Dory, an elderly female with battle scars crisscrossing her scaled face. We've read your report. Frankly, it sounds like the delusional ramblings of someone trying to excuse their incompetence. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. It's the truth, Varric insisted. You weren't there, you didn't see what I saw. This human, this director Talon, he had access to everything. Our secure facilities, our encrypted channels, even the location of this very bunker. Grand Admiral Cross leaned forward, eyes narrowing. And yet no attack has come, no fleet masses at our borders. The humans have made no official complaints to the Galactic Council. If they truly held such a dominant position, why not press their advantage? Because they don't need to, said a new voice from the back of the chamber. All heads turned as Strategic Intelligence Director Zan stepped from the shadows. Unlike most xanthans, her scales were an unusual gray-blue, marking her as a rare northern variant of their species. She moved with deliberate grace toward the center of the room. Director Zan, Crows acknowledged with obvious displeasure. This session was not open to Intelligence Division. Forgive the intrusion, Grand Admiral, Ember replied, not sounding remotely apologetic, but I believe former Commander TH's account. The chamber erupted in hisses and clicking sounds, the xanthan equivalent of shocked murmurs. Explain yourself, Crows demanded. Embra activated a small device on her wrist. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing footage from multiple xanthan facilities. These recordings are from our most secure installations, taken during the same time frame as TH's encounter with the human fleet. Watch closely. The council members leaned forward, their crests rising in alarm as they witnessed black-armored human figures moving through restricted areas with apparent ease, disabling security systems, accessing terminals, and occasionally neutralizing xanthan security personnel with non-lethal methods. They were everywhere, Embrace stated flatly, and then just as mysteriously as they appeared, they vanished. No casualties, no stolen data, no sabotage, a show of force. Precisely, Vorik breathed, vindicated at last. Precisely, Embra agreed, fixing her unblinking gaze on the Grand Admiral. They wanted us to know they could reach us anywhere, that our secrets aren't secret from them. Admiral Desari slammed a clawed hand on the table. This is unacceptable. We should strike now, before they can consolidate whatever advantage they've gained. With what? Ember asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Our fleet that they can apparently track and intercept at will, our secure communications that they can decrypt during their lunch breaks, our weapons systems that they can disable remotely. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Grand Admiral Cross cleared his throat. What do you suggest, Director Zan? We need to understand what we're dealing with, she replied. I've spent the last 3 weeks analyzing every scrap of intelligence we have on humanity. Most of it, I now realize, is dangerously incomplete. She manipulated her wrist device again, and the holographic display changed to show a series of human historical images. Ancient battles, world wars, nuclear explosions, and space exploration milestones. Humans evolved on a death world, Ember explained. High gravity, extreme climate variations, diverse predators, constant natural disasters. Their entire history is an endless cycle of conflict and adaptation. We are aware of Earth's classification as a Class 4 death world, Cross said impatiently. What's your point? My point, Grand Admiral, is that we've been thinking about humans all wrong. We saw their emphasis on cooperation, their medical ships, their diplomatic overtures as signs of weakness, evolutionary responses to their harsh world. But what if those traits are actually strategic choices? What if they prefer peace not because they fear war, but because they excel at it? The chamber fell silent again. Ember continued, her voice dropping to an almost conspiratorial level. I've uncovered references to something humans call Operation Glass House. It appears to be a contingency plan developed shortly after they achieved FTL travel. The details are heavily classified, but I believe it involves rapid response capabilities and deep intelligence gathering throughout neighboring systems. Including ours, Varric added grimly. Including everyone's, Ember corrected. The humans don't trust anyone. Their history taught them to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Grand Admiral Cross's crest flattened against his skull, a sign of deep concern. Your recommendation, Director. Ember shut down the holographic display. Immediate cessation of all covert operations against human interests, full compliance with their warning, and perhaps most importantly, a complete security overhaul of our networks and facilities. You suggest we capitulate, Admiral Dory sputtered. I suggest we survive, Ember replied coldly, at least until we better understand what we're facing. The chamber erupted in heated debate, with council members arguing passionately for both aggression and caution. Varric watched silently, remembering the cold eyes of Director Talon and feeling increasingly certain that Ember was right. Finally, Grand Admiral Crows raised a hand for silence. We will put it to a vote, those in favor of continued operations against human interests. 3 hands raised. Those in favor of temporary cessation while we strengthen our position. 4 hands, including the Grand Admiral's own. The majority has spoken, Cross declared. All operations targeting humans are suspended immediately. Director Zan, you will lead the security overhaul. Former Commander Thal, you are reassigned to Intelligence Division as Ember's deputy. Your first-hand experience with these humans may prove valuable. Varric bowed his head, surprised by this unexpected reprieve. Thank you, Grand Admiral. Don't thank me yet, Cross replied grimly. Your new assignment may prove more dangerous than combat. Dismissed. As Varric followed Imbra from the chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, even here in the heart of Xanthan power. Do you think they're monitoring us now? He asked quietly. Ember gave him a sideways glance. Almost certainly, come to my office. It's been swept for devices twice today. Once inside the relative security of intelligence headquarters, Ambra sealed the door and activated a sonic disruption field. Now we can speak freely, probably. You believe me then about the extent of human infiltration? I do, she confirmed, settling behind her desk. In fact, I think the situation may be even worse than you realize. Look at this. She produced a data crystal and inserted it into her terminal. A document appeared on the screen, a Xanthan military analysis of human psychology dated nearly 30 Earth years earlier. This report correctly identified humanity's greatest weakness, Ember explained. Their empathy, their instinct to protect the vulnerable. That's why our commanders have repeatedly targeted their medical ships and civilian outposts to draw their military away from strategic positions. Varric nodded, standard doctrine, yes. But read the conclusion. Ver leaned closer, his eyes widening as he absorbed the final paragraph. While exploiting human empathy offers short-term tactical advantages, strategic analysis projects a 94.3% probability that sustained targeting of human noncombatants will trigger a fundamental shift in military doctrine. Simply put, if pressed beyond certain thresholds, humans demonstrate capacity to temporarily suspend their moral constraints in favor of ruthless pragmatism. Historical analysis suggests this state, which humans have variously termed righteous fury, total war, taking the gloves off, is typically followed by the complete neutralization of the perceived threat. Recommendation: limit operations to legitimate military targets. This was buried, Imbras said quietly, filed away and ignored because it contradicted the prevailing view that humans were soft. For 30 years, we've been poking a predator, assuming it was prey. Varric sank into a chair, his second stomach churning with dread. And now I think we've crossed that threshold. This Director Talon, his black-armored operatives, they represent humanity taking the gloves off. Their restraint thus far isn't weakness, it's calculation. But if we comply with their demands, back off as they instructed, then maybe we've been given a rare second chance, Varric suggested. Maybe, Ember finished for him. But we need to be thorough. Any commander who decides to defy the Council's order, any rogue operation against human interests could be the spark that ignites a fire we cannot extinguish. Varric nodded grimly. Where do we start? With Admiral Peskov, Ember replied. He commands our deep space fleet in the Orion Spur. He's brilliant but notoriously independent-minded, if anyone would ignore a stand-down order. I'll speak to him personally, Varric offered. He knows me from the Academy. Good, we leave in 6 hours. And Varric, her eyes locked with his, pack for a long journey. I have a feeling we're going to be cleaning up a lot of potential problems before this is over. 3 days later, aboard Ember's sleek intelligence vessel, they dropped out of hyperspace near Admiral Peskov's last reported position. Immediately, something felt wrong. "Where's the fleet?" Varric asked, staring at the empty tactical display. "They should be running patrol patterns in this sector." "Scanning," reported the sensor officer, a young Xanthan female named Trya. "No Xanthan vessels detected within range." Ember frowned. "Expand search parameters, look for debris, residual energy signatures, anything unusual." Trio worked her console for several minutes, then gasped. "Director, I'm detecting a massive debris field at the edge of the system. Composition matches xanthan hull alloys." "On screen," Ember ordered, her voice tight. The main viewer activated, showing a vast scattering of twisted metal and shattered components drifting silently through space. Even to an untrained eye, it was clearly the remains of multiple large vessels. "That's impossible," Varric whispered. "Peskov had 12 warships under his command. Nothing could have destroyed them all without a fight," Ember finished grimly. "No weapons discharge residue in the area, no distress calls received. They were destroyed without firing a single shot." "Humans?" Varric asked, though he already knew the answer. "Scan for any message buoys," Ember instructed. "If this was them, they'll have left their calling card." Sure enough, Trya soon located a small device drifting among the debris. When retrieved, it contained only a brief video recording. The bridge crew gathered around as Ember played it on the main screen. Director Talon's familiar face appeared, as coldly composed as Varric remembered. "This message is for the Xanthan High Command," he began without preamble. "Admiral Peskov received your order to stand down. He chose to disregard it. More specifically, he chose to launch a direct assault on the human colony on Proxima Centauri B, believing our forces were spread too thin to defend it adequately." Talon's expression didn't change, but his voice took on a harder edge. "He was incorrect. What you see around you is the consequence of his error. No human lives were lost. No warning shots were fired. When we say Earth is off limits, we mean exactly that." The recording ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. How, Varric finally managed. How could they destroy 12 warships without a fight? Amber stared at the debris field, her analytical mind racing. Some weapon we don't understand yet, or perhaps. "Perhaps what?" Varric prompted. "Perhaps infiltration on a scale we can barely comprehend. What if they didn't need to fight the ships because they were already inside their systems? What if they simply turned them off, or worse, turned them against each other?" The implications sent a chill through everyone present. "Director," Trya said quietly from her station, "there's something else you should see. I've analyzed the debris pattern. These ships weren't just destroyed, they were dissected, precision cuts along structural seams. It's like they were taken apart rather than blown up." "A demonstration," Amber murmured. "They wanted us to see exactly what they're capable of. Take samples of the debris, then set course back to Xantha Prime maximum speed. The Council needs to see this." As their ship turned away from the graveyard of Peskov's fleet, Var couldn't help but stare at the drifting remains on the view screen until they vanished from sight. "What do we do now?" he asked. "How do we fight an enemy like this?" Ember gave him a long, measured look. "We don't. That's the point of their message. We clearly misjudged humanity from the beginning. They aren't conquerors by nature. Despite having the capability, they genuinely prefer cooperation to domination, but push them far enough and they become something else entirely." "Exactly," Varric finished. "So we adapt, we learn, we respect their boundaries. And perhaps in time we find a way to coexist with a species that's been fighting death itself since they crawled out of the primordial ooze on their nightmare world." Varric nodded slowly, understanding at last. The humans hadn't retaliated with mindless rage as many Xanthans might have done. Their response had been calculated, precise, and proportionate, yet utterly devastating. A perfect balance of mercy and overwhelming force. As their ship accelerated into hyperspace, carrying news that would forever change the Xanthan Empire's place in the Galactic Order, Varric found himself thinking about Director Talon's words during their first encounter. "We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war against ourselves before we ever reached the stars." What a terrifying apprenticeship for a species to serve, and what formidable allies they might make if the Xanthans were wise enough to recognize the opportunity being offered alongside the warning. Perhaps, Varric reflected, that was the most human thing of all. Extending one hand in friendship even while the other held a weapon capable of ending you completely. Not out of deception or weakness, but from a genuine preference for peace achieved through strength. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Vorik made a personal vow to study these perplexing creatures more deeply. Not to find new weaknesses to exploit, but to understand how they had managed something the Xanthan Empire had never achieved in its thousand-year history, becoming so terrifying that they rarely needed to demonstrate their power. The true art of war, it seemed, was making actual warfare unnecessary, and humanity had mastered it. Epilogue. 2 Galactic Standard months later, the Xanthan Empire signed an unprecedented non-aggression pact with Earth and its allies. The treaty was celebrated across human space as a diplomatic triumph. Only a handful of individuals on both sides understood it for what it truly was, humanity's most merciful conquest. Director Talon watched the signing ceremony from his secure office deep beneath the Olympus Mons military complex on Mars, a rare smile touching his lips. Operation Glass House is officially a success, his aide reported. Xanthan compliance is at 97% and rising. And the other potential threats? Talon asked, reviewing data on his terminal. The Praxians have withdrawn from the TD system after observing what happened to the Xanthan fleet. The Volrani hegemony has requested trade negotiations, emphasizing their desire for peaceful relations. Even the Dorsac Collective has gone quiet. Talon nodded, satisfied. As expected, fear is a universal language. Should we scale back surveillance operations now, sir? Director Talon's smile faded, replaced by the cold, calculating expression that had unnerved Commander Varric Thal. No, if anything, expand them. Humanity learned its lesson after the Proxima Centauri attack 5 years ago. Never again will we be caught unprepared. He turned to gaze at the massive holographic display covering one wall, showing real-time data feeds from thousands of monitoring stations throughout known space. The galaxy is a dangerous place, he mused. But they're learning, slowly, that nothing is more dangerous than a species evolved from prey animals who decided they were tired of being hunted. Humanity had emerged from its cradle world scarred but unbowed, carrying with them the unique perspective of creatures who had stared into the abyss of their own extinction more than once and refused to blink. Now the galaxy was learning what Earth's predators had discovered millions of years ago. Sometimes the most dangerous animal isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest jaws. It's the one smart enough to set traps, to plan ahead, to sacrifice immediate gain for long-term survival. It's the one that walks like prey but thinks like a predator. It's humanity.